What's the difference between Iboga and ibogaine? Now, this is a question that I get asked a lot because here at Iboga Source, I primarily work with Iboga, the actual root bark, and not ibogaine, which is the thing that's kind of, popular mainstream right now when it comes to this medicine. And honestly, like for me, one of my intention is actually to shift that paradigm so that people get back into the real medicine, which is the Iboga, which contains ibogaine, but it also contains many other alkaloids that are super beneficial for the experience and actually create a safer container for you to experience the medicine. And so here's what I want to say about this. So first of all, Iboga is the root bark, is the traditional way to use this medicine. It is the protective layer of the root of the Iboga tree, which grows in the jungle of Africa, in Gabon and Cameroon and Congo and places like that, and but especially in Gabon. And so, this is found in the very depth of the jungle. There's trees that are 30, 40, 50 years old, and we cut those the protective layer, we shave it off of the root, and essentially that's what is consumed in Iboga ceremonies, is that the shavings of those roots, the root bark. And in it has many different alkaloids, the main one being ibogaine. That's the one that's the most present in it. Between 4 to 6% of the root is ibogaine. Now, what a lot of the clinics and the people do from this time, at this age, is that they do an extraction process that first extracts the alkaloids that are active in Iboga, which this is called TA, total alkaloid. Now the TA is a process that first you mix this root bark with vinegar, and then it's like that extracts a lot of the alkaloids in the vinegar, and then they use ammonia to actually make all of this back into a powder, essentially, that is what people call TA, and then the ammonia is washed and dried. Now already with this, in my opinion, there's a few things that are a bit of a red flag, because in this process, not everybody is doing that process correctly. Sometimes in the washing of the ammonia, not all of it is being washed. Like I've actually been in places before where people were being served TA, and I was the one responsible for making the TA into the capsules. And the TA, I'm very sensitive with smell. It's always been one of my gifts, and I could actually smell the ammonia in the TA. So there was definitely still traces amount of it. And so, who knows, what the impact on the body that this could be, that there will be some mixing of the ammonia and the TA. So then, people talk about the dangers of Iboga. Well, is it really the dangers of Iboga, or is it because it's not been properly, administered, and there's some other stuff than the Iboga that interacts with the Iboga to create those kind of nefarious conditions, let's say. So that's one aspect with the TA. Like personally, at the Iboga Source Retreats and Transcend with Iboga, we basically never use TA. We only use the pure root bark, because why not? The medicine is already perfect the way that it was intended to be. Maybe it's a little less convenient, you could say, because you need a lesser quantity of the TA. You can just take a few capsules and poof, you have the experience. But with the root bark, well, you need a greater quantity, but that's also fine. You can just make it into a tea. That works too. So at the retreats here, I serve both the tea and the root bark. And the root bark, well, you need a bit of a greater quantity to get the full experience, but that's okay. It's part of the experience to go through that. And it is also possible to put it in capsules, but then you would just need to take a large amount of capsules. But some people, that's what they need, and it's okay. So, but my point is just that the medicine is perfect the way that it was originally intended. Now, with the ibogaine, it's another layer of the processing. So once you have the TA, then that TA is purified into ibogaine, which is one of the alkaloids. So in Iboga, there's usually between 12 to 20 active alkaloids that are all doing something. The body uses them, metabolizes it, and ibogaine is just one of these 12 to 20 alkaloids. It is the main one. It is the one that gives the, like you could say, Iboga state, where you start to have, the buzzing sensation. You start to have visions that kind of feel a bit dreamy. You start to have answers come to you. The way that you think is quite different. Your awareness is increased. All of these things, well, you can get that from the ibogaine alone. I've experienced it. I wanted to compare what was the difference between ibogaine and Iboga, and so I went through an ibogaine journey just so that I know what it is like. And so I went literally through the clinical way of doing it with like a medical staff and putting an IV and like having a heart rate monitor because people are afraid essentially that you're gonna die, which is a completely different paradigm than how I operate in the ceremonies that we facilitate at Iboga Source, where there's literally no fear whatsoever. Like, I do not have a single ounce of fear with this medicine. Never had any form of medical issue, never even came close to having like a wondering if I needed to call an ambulance or if I needed to administer something. Like, it's really never even been a thing. But back to what I was saying, the ibogaine is one of those alkaloids that are present in the Iboga. And yes, it's the main one. 46% of the whole root bark is ibogaine. And with the quantity that we give, it's pretty similar quantity than what people give when you go in a clinic and they give ibogaine. Now, one thing that they do in the clinics, which to me is like nonsensical, is that they give a quantity of medicine that is based off of people's weight. Let's say that you weigh, 150 pounds. Well, they're going to be like, okay, well, we're going to give this amount of medicine per pound, and as a result of that, this is the quantity that this person is going to receive. Now, the thing is, for me, having worked with this medicine for 9 years, I have seen time and time and time again how people's tolerance and receptivity to the medicine has nothing to do with their weight. Literally nothing. I have seen very, very thin women, like super thin and petite and like that needed a lot of medicine because they had a high tolerance. And then I've also seen like big muscular guy that was, like you look at them and it's like, my gosh, like this guy is like a football player or something. And they needed very little medicine because they were super sensitive and they needed very little quantity. Now, if I would do it based on the weight, I would actually be overdosing this big guy and I would be underdosing this little woman because it has nothing to do with the weight. It really has so many things to do with so many different factors, has something to do with how you think, how you process information, with your metabolism rate, with like all sorts of things. And so that the clinics are doing it based on people's weight, to me, is literally like putting people at risk. But they're the ones that are like saying that you need all this medical stuff and everything. Well, of course, like if you don't do it the way that it was supposed to be done, then you increase the risks. And another thing that I want to say is that if the ibogaine is the thing that's responsible for the main experience, then it's like a very like direct approach, like almost like I call it like a weapon. Like you can be holding a stick, or you can be holding like a stick that was cut so that it's very, very it becomes like a weapon or something. Like it's like the glass cannon approach, as I like to say, where it's stripped down of all the supportive elements that make the Iboga much safer for the body, so that it focuses and concentrates on just the effects. And just the effects is like cocaine versus cocoa. Like there's this leaf called cocoa that people use for like this energy boost, and it's like mellow and things like that. And it's great. But there's also cocaine, which, I mean, as we know, is not great. It's very risky and it has all sorts of issues and causes problems for people. To me, it's the same with ibogaine and Iboga. But the thing is that ibogaine is a tremendously beautiful and powerful and almost miraculous substance. It's something so beneficial. I mean, I've seen some doctors that have some files with people getting ibogaine treatments that help reduce symptoms of all sorts of medical issues that they had, ranging from lupus to Crohn's to Parkinson to all sorts of things. And I'm not claiming anything, like I'm not making medical claim that it's going to be curing you and everything like that. But I've just seen over and over and over again that these symptoms can be helped tremendously with the medicine. And of course, the same is true for the Iboga, because the Iboga contains the ibogaine. It just contains all sorts of other things that support the ibogaine, enhance the experience, make it so that it's even more beneficial because it helps the body to process things in a different way. Like, for example, there's something called tabernantine in the Iboga, which is something that kind of makes your body have little tremors, essentially. Now, these tremors may look weird to somebody that doesn't know what's going on, but when you actually dive into the science of trauma release, and like, for example, there's this thing called TRE, trauma release exercise. And what happens in TRE is that you do a succession of different exercises that then trigger this release of trauma inside the body, which looks like tremors, and you start shaking. And now the tabernantine actually creates that effect in the people. So it actually helps you to release trauma without having to go through like the normal TRE process. So literally, while you are with this medicine, when you have the full experience, you have this tremor thing that happen, which actually helps to process the negative experiences that you've had in your life in a way that is like visceral and physical. So on top of receiving the mental benefits that the ibogaine give you, and like the spiritual component of getting clarity in your questions, answers, and everything, you also get a physical flushing of those trauma, even on a physical level, which is extremely beneficial. There's also another of the alkaloids that actually interacts with the heart channels in a way that's not even been studied yet. So for me, I'm very curious, and I'm actually going to be doing some more studies in the near future about what exactly takes place there, because my feeling, my hypothesis, you could say at this moment, is that it actually helps to support the heart so that it's much safer to do it in its fullness with the full medicine instead of just the ibogaine, that then is like this glass cannon approach where the whole system is kind of like, because it's overly intense, essentially. And also the duration, like it doesn't last as long when it's the full medicine versus when it's the pure ibogaine, for whatever reason. Like, people take the ibogaine and then they're feeling high for 3 days, and it doesn't have to be like that. When I give people the iboga tea, well, it lasts the whole night, and then it really mellows down after a few hours, and then they're pretty functional and fun. And then when they have a full night of sleep, they wake up feeling sober again, which is very, very beneficial. Because, to go 3 days without sleep like that, it can be very, very hard for the system. And which is, again, something that kind of increases the risk. So, we have all these elements together that makes it so that personally, it's almost like, I do not understand how it is that only the ibogaine right now is super popular and everybody's talking ibogaine, when really the superstar is the Iboga, because it has all the benefits of the ibogaine. But it's done in a much safer, more convenient, not more convenient, like that's the one thing that I would say the ibogaine would win, but more like a fullness of the experience, like it's whole, it's literally the way that nature makes it. And so I would definitely say that if people would really take it in the way that it is like intended to, in the way that it's most natural with the Iboga, this medicine would be so much more beneficial. And that's why, I'm starting to popularize this, and soon I'll be going on all the podcasts and everything to share about this new way of thinking about the medicine, a new paradigm, because right now the medicine wants to be known. And also, most people don't even know that you can microdose with this medicine. It's so beneficial. If you go on the ibogasource.com, the website, you can get my book for free, and you will be able to get a whole protocol of how to use this medicine in a way that's super beneficial and mellow and like gradual. And it's using the Iboga root bark, because it doesn't even have to be like this super crazy intense, like Mount Everest of psychedelics type of journey. It can actually be a very, very gentle and like gradual healing that takes place. And you can get the same level of benefits from this like more gentle approach as you can with the full ceremony, and just, you know, takes a little bit more time. And so some people, they require that kind of intense, like going deep and fixing your whole life in a week, like process. And also, you know, we do that because that's what changed my life first, like in the first place. And so I'm always, you know, I have a little bias towards this because it's so wonderful when you go deep with this medicine. I mean, you get all your questions answered in one go. Like, you get the clarity, you get the profound healing, you release the traumas. It's like a whole reset. You know, sometimes I say, like, let's say that your whole life you're like skiing down this mountain and there's like these tracks that get super, super deep. But then when you start to have different habits and different things in your life, it's like you're creating different tracks. But then the other ones are so like deep because they've been done over and over and over again that it's become so difficult to go outside because you just naturally get back into those tracks. But then when you do this profound retreat with the medicine, well, it's like a whole reset, you know, there's like a snowstorm that takes place and just resets the whole playing field. So that then after that, the habits and everything that you do, well, is you're able to more easily do it. You create those new tracks and then those become the one that are easy to go into, right? So it's a really, really powerful reset. And also, I mean, I could go into all the physical benefits of the medicine, the GDNF being upregulated, making so that your brain literally heals with this medicine, your nervous system heals, your everything, just like the organ functions. I mean, I even had someone that had carpal tunnel, was scheduled for an operation, and because he couldn't move his wrist, we did one ceremony with the medicine, and then the next day he's moving his wrist, and he's like, is that normal? I'm like, well, you know, well, it's just the medicine is amazing. It really is, at so many different ways that we haven't even begun to understand yet. So that's the main difference between the Iboga and the Ibogaine, essentially. The Iboga is the full experience, which has all the alkaloids that are supporting the Ibogaine in doing what it does best. And the Ibogaine is really, really effective, and it leads to all sorts of tremendous benefits and wonderful results. I mean, you hear all the stories of how beneficial it was for people. All of this is also true with Iboga. It's just that it's done in a much safer way and in a much, in my opinion, beneficial way because of so many various reasons. Like, some of them I shared here, but I mean, there's even more that I feel we haven't even like understood yet because it hasn't been studied. Most of the studies out there are with Ibogaine, and so people are focused on the Ibogaine. Now I want some studies to be done on Iboga, and so that we can see what I'm talking about here and what the medicine has been sharing with me and how this is the way to do it. This is really, I mean, the medicine is wanting to be done in this way a lot more than in the Ibogaine way. And so my greatest, at least one of my greatest wish is that this paradigm of like being overly focused on the Ibogaine can change and we can get back to working primarily with the Iboga and the way that is most natural for this medicine to be experienced, which is consuming the root bark, consuming the plant itself, and connecting with it. And I mean, I'm not even going into the spiritual ramifications of those extraction, using all these chemicals to extract it versus taking straight from the ground, you know? So that's a whole other story, but essentially it's overall much better to work with Iboga than with Ibogaine. And I know that this is maybe a bit of a controversial statement, but I stand by it, and having experienced both, I can guarantee you that I mean, another thing, like I just want to say, like, because people are so overly focused on the medical side in those clinics, the vibe of the atmosphere of the sessions is so different. Like, you know, for me, I had like these paramedics and these people that were serving the Ibogaine, and they were always like, they were just asking me, like, essentially, like, are you alive? Like, are you dying right now? I'm like, I'm fine, you know, like, because I trust this medicine. But like, if I was somebody that was really like already pretty worried, and the Ibogaine would amplify those fears and things like that, like, it would be like hell. And so people are always talking like, oh, everybody's going through hell experience with Ibogaine. I'm like, does it have to be like that? Like, you know, for me, when I take the medicine, it's a celebration. It's like a party going on. I love this medicine, but people couldn't understand, like the paramedics and things like that, they had seen like potentially dozens, if not hundreds of people, and they had never seen somebody like me with this medicine, just enjoying the experience. And so, and you know, there's a reason for that. And the reason is because Iboga gradually heals the falseness inside of you to get back to the true self. And the true self is somebody that's joyful, is somebody that's, you know, ecstatic with life and at peace with himself and with God and with life and everything. And for me, I've done the work to be like that, you know. It's inside of me. It's very natural to be at peace, to be joyful, to be loving towards myself, towards God, towards life, towards other people, towards everything. And Iboga just amplifies that when I'm with it. So it doesn't have to be this super like harsh or like, you know, intense. Or this is just because Iboga is a mirror. It mirrors what's going on inside of you. As I like to say, is like if the experience is shitty, well, why do you think that is? It doesn't have to be this way. And so I hope this was helpful, and I trust that you got something at least from this message. And if you are interested in experiencing this medicine, you can check the link in the description. We offer retreats, we offer microdosing protocol, and even facilitator training if you ever feel called to also serve this medicine. My goal is to have centers all over the world that serve this medicine, because we're actually in a state right now where this medicine wants to be more known, more accessible. And one of my mission is to make that possible for people. And so you can check that out. And much love to you. As always, thank you for being you. You're amazing. And well, I can't wait for you to know how true that is. Much love. Bye-bye.